All right, so this is another movie review. This is my review for the movie V, which came out in 1967. V is a Soviet UVIT. I already can't even talk. So, V is a Soviet Union made film that came out in 1967. It's said to be the first Soviet Union horror film. And yes, if you see me looking over to the side, that's because I'm reading my review that I wrote down. So don't freak out. Okay, so anyway, so I watched V for free on Fossum on January 12th, 2026. That is the first time I ever watched the movie. I went in blind watching the film, only hearing that it was pretty scary. I knew nothing else about it. Upon first look, I was immediately enamored with the creepy opening shots of the spider webs and stone. It can be immediately said that V is a beautiful movie. I was really taken back by the various shots that were legitimately taken outdoors. The countryside shots were beautiful to see, and I thought they were very well captured. In general, the captures in the movie are very well done and artistic. I was legitimately shocked that the movie originally came out in 1967 because to me the camera work was ahead of its time. To me it seemed like it could have came out in the 1980s the way it was shot. There's a lot that doesn't seem to be known about the film's background. Production trivia is scant. The plot of V is based off of the story of the same name, originally a story written by Nikolai Gogol. The movie follows the story pretty faithfully from what I was just able to quickly read, on Wikipedia. This was interesting to watch after seeing the movie Black Sunday, and it was actually unintentional that I chose to watch V after Black Sunday. I did not do that on purpose. But V came out 7 years after Black Sunday, which was also inspired by the story, but emphasis on inspired. V is like a faithful reproduction. Black Sunday is just, inspired by it, doesn't actually take the elements of it. So, to quickly sum up the plot, so we don't spend the whole movie just quote unquote reviewing it, summarizing it, three seminary students get lost after being released for break. They come across a farm, and the old woman allows them to sleep there, but only if they agree to sleep in separate rooms. Our main character, Coma, goes into the barn to sleep when the old lady comes in trying to seduce him. She climbs on his shoulders and they run outside where they start to fly. Coma realizes that she's a witch. He calls on Christ and they land, where he proceeds to beat her to death. But right before she dies, she transforms into a beautiful woman. This scares Coma and he runs away back to the seminary where he's told he has to say prayers over Asotnik's dying daughter, and the daughter asked for him specifically. Right before he arrives, the daughter dies, and of course it turns out that she was the beautiful woman that he killed. Coma is then to say prayers over her body for 3 nights while locked inside the church. After 3 days, he's supposed to get 1,000 gold. And not to completely spoil the ending, but this doesn't happen. And Coma is pretty much scared to death, if you want to put it that way. The movie itself isn't very long, only about an hour and 16 minutes. It built up in the first half just to get to the church. I actually think that the buildup is necessary. I feel like some people might have been like, oh my God, half the movie isn't even, the scary part. But I think it's to help you understand Coma's character and how much of a coward he was, because he couldn't even admit that he hurt that girl. I don't think he ever admits to anyone in the movie that he killed her. Eventually, it's made clear that this is all part of an ancient folk tale that the other people seem to be aware of. So it might have been possible that they knew he killed her. Either way, it seems that others did know that he was being haunted by the witch's spirit. Even though this is considered to be the first Soviet horror film, I don't find the movie to be scary, honestly. But I don't think the Soviet Union probably would have allowed the movie to be any creepier than it is. The horror aspect is much more in line of like the Scooby-Doo kind of spooky realm than something like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But I think that this is fitting, considering that it's a folk tale and, of course, not a slasher film. I found the practical effects to be absolutely amazing in the movie. There was obviously a lot of work put into all of the sets and props, and this is most strongly seen at the end of the movie, where the monsters all come out of the church crevices. The biggest one of all, of course, being V. I found the Goblin V himself to be an interesting creature, though kind of lackluster in the sense that he wasn't really worth the movie being named after. Though, of course, this is based off of a story, so of course it kind of had to be that way. But anyway, V was a creature actually entirely different from the witch. And I know that this is how the story is supposed to go. It's still a shame to me, though, because V is only in the movie for a very short period of time right before it ends. The effects used in the movie really show during the final scene all of the detail that went into making it. The use of green screen magic really adds to the magical sense of the movie. So the modern eye can tell that it's green screen, and that's not necessarily bad. Some people might be like, oh, that's green screen, I could tell. I think it's actually good that we can tell that because it really actually fits with the folklore theme. The end part with the hands that surround Coma actually look really cool and haunted, and I think being able to tell it's green screen plays into that. The wooden church that was used for the set really adds to the creepy folklore vibe, the Scooby-Doo type of, element that I was thinking of. I know that, of course, Scooby-Doo came out 2 years after the movie was made, but I can't think of anything else that really comes close to the feeling that V conjures. It's that campy, creepy feeling that's a lot more silly in the end, but in a good way. The movie has this more classic, scary feeling using hand gestures with the girl. And it kind of reminds me of how, like, theater shows, like actual theater, will use hands to create even the smallest effects during a play. She kind of like does this to really seem creepy. I thought that was a good way to do that without having to use extra special effects. I also loved, of course, the use of the green screen, but also for the drunk effect, which is earlier in the movie, because the men were in the tavern and Coma ends up being super duper drunk, and he sees like 3 iterations of the same guy, and they use a green screen for that. I thought that was really, really clever. I don't think I've ever seen a movie do that with a green screen, like a drunk effect like that. I thought that was just so clever. And that's what I like about the movie a lot, that they use very clever ways to convey the ideas. Overall, I think this is a great movie, and actually really funny. I loved how the camera showed the expression on Coma's face when the other men started telling the tale of the witch, which is what ended up happening to him when he realized, oh my God, that was actually a witch. I don't know what you call this type of cinematography in general, but I just love this style so much. It's definitely one of the earliest examples of, I guess, what you would say modern movie making, or rather, one of the early steps early films that take a step away. from the standard old Hollywood or golden era type film. It uses shots and set making that are similar to movies that you would see in the 70s and that era of horror movies. One that came to mind when I wrote this review was how it seemed similar to me like Magic, that has Anthony Hopkins, if you've seen that film. That film style is what I thought of when I saw the movie V. And ironically, those films are 12 years apart. Magic came out after V. I'm unsure what the film influences to V are, but they seem to have been different from what were the standard Hollywood hits of the time, if you want to put it that way. As I said before, not much info is out there about the movie in general. It seems to have come to America around 2001, judging by a DVD version released that year, according to Wikipedia. I didn't see anything about it, of course, in newspaper archives, IMDb doesn't have much info either. Just some of the same things that are on Wikipedia. Interestingly, though, the wooden church that was used in the film apparently burned down, but it was rebuilt in 2006. One of the interesting things about the movie, to me, was how it so beautifully captured people who were born a very long time ago. It's interesting watching this movie in 2026, 59 years later. Many of the actors have since passed away, and any of the living young people are old now. Some of the characters, such as the man who plays the old version of the witch, and a few of the men that go with coma to the dying woman, were born in the 1800s. It's mind-blowing to see actors that are so well depicted, yet they having been born so far away from the current time that we're in. I think that goes to show that with a high enough quality camera, decades in the past can seem nearly modern day or a few years ago. Overall, I think that the movie is worth watching, though you'll have to read the subtitles. I know some people don't like to do that. I personally don't have a problem with it, but I found this movie to be funny, interesting, and artistically beautiful. If you're into underground horror, weird cult movies, this is something you should at least watch once, I think. I can actually see myself watching this again. I would definitely watch this probably 2, 3 more times, say, yeah, I'll watch that, I genuinely really liked this movie. If anything, I think you should watch it for the silly little pufferfish. I don't know what was going on with this. This was probably one of my favorite props in the movie. If anything, you should watch it for the silly little pufferfish that has these little crab legs and whiskers on it. They just glued it on there. I don't know why. I have no idea what the thing was, but it was so silly and cute. So I would give V actually 4 out of 5 stars. That's it. That's the review. Bye.